Ever feel like your brain is actively protesting the work you need to do? Most of us try to bribe or bully ourselves into gear, but science shows that carrots and sticks actually kill your creativity. Here's how to stop the tug of war and finally flip the internal switches that make motivation automatic. We've all been there, staring at a blinking cursor or a gym bag like it's a puzzle we can't solve. Usually, when we hit that wall, we reach for the oldest tools in the human shed, the carrot and the stick. We tell ourselves, if I just finish this report, I'll buy those shoes. Or if I don't get this done by 5, I'm a total failure. It's a simple equation of reward and punishment that we've used since we were toddlers, and for a long time, we assumed it was the only way to get things moving. But here is the reality. That old school if-then logic is actually a trap. Think about the carrot. It's a dangling prize meant to lure you forward. While it might work for simple, mechanical tasks, like folding a mountain of laundry or stuffing envelopes, it starts to crumble the moment you need to be creative, strategic, or deeply focused. When you fixate on a reward, your brain undergoes a subtle but damaging shift. Your peripheral vision narrows. You stop looking at the task as a craft or a challenge to be enjoyed and start seeing it as a hurdle standing between you and your prize. You aren't doing the work anymore. You're just trying to get through it. The science behind this is fascinating and a bit sobering. Research over the last 60 years shows that when we attach a high-stakes reward to a task that requires cognitive heavy lifting, performance actually drops. The reward creates a kind of tunnel vision. It adds pressure that stifles the very parts of your brain responsible for outside-the-box thinking. You become less flexible and more prone to shortcuts. You might hit the deadline, but the quality of the work, and more importantly, the quality of your mental state while doing it, suffers. Then there's the stick, the guilt, the fear of failure, the self-criticism. This is even more toxic. When you try to bully your brain into being productive, you're essentially triggering a mild fight or flight response. Your brain doesn't see a project, it sees a threat. And what does a brain do when it feels threatened? It looks for an exit. That's why you end up scrolling through social media for 3 hours instead of doing the work. It's a literal escape from the internal bully you've created. The carrot and stick trap is a cycle of diminishing returns. The more we rely on these external pressures, the more we lose touch with our own natural curiosity. We become like a car that only moves when it's being pushed by a tractor. The engine is there, the fuel is there, but we've forgotten how to turn the key. If we want motivation that actually lasts, the kind that doesn't feel like a constant uphill battle, we have to stop treating ourselves like Pavlov's dogs. We have to realize that our brains aren't wired for if-then transactions. They are wired for engagement. We need to stop looking at the prize at the finish line and start looking at the mechanics of the race itself. The trap is thinking that motivation is something that happens to us from the outside. The truth is, the most sustainable energy comes from the inside out. In the next few sections, we'll talk about how to actually flip those internal switches. If the carrot and the stick are a trap, we need a new navigation system. We need to stop looking at ourselves as machines that need to be fueled and start seeing ourselves as humans who need to be engaged. To do that, we have to flip 3 specific internal switches. Think of these as the 3 pillars of flow, the psychological foundations that make work feel less like a chore and more like a choice. The first pillar is autonomy. At our core, we have a deep-seated urge to be the architects of our own lives. The moment we feel controlled, whether by a boss, a deadline, or even our own rigid shoulds, our motivation begins to evaporate. When you say, "I have to do this," your brain hears a command, and its natural instinct is to resist. To flip the autonomy switch, you don't need to quit your job or overhaul your life. You just need to reclaim the power of choice, even in the tiniest ways. It's the difference between, "I must write this," and "I'm going to write this while sitting on my porch with a coffee." That small shift, choosing the how, the where, or the when, signals to your brain that you are still in the driver's seat. Ownership is the spark that turns a task into an action. The second pillar is mastery. Humans are wired to grow. We have an innate desire to get better at things that actually matter. Think about why people spend hundreds of hours learning to play an instrument or perfecting a video game level without getting paid a dime. It's the itch of improvement. However, mastery is often killed by the big picture. When a goal feels too massive, your brain can't see the path to getting better, so it just shuts down. The secret to flipping the mastery switch is finding the Goldilocks zone. Tasks that are not so easy they're boring, but not so hard they're paralyzing. It's about chasing that 1% improvement every single day. When you feel yourself getting slightly more skilled at a craft, your brain releases a hit of dopamine that makes you want to go back for more. The third pillar is purpose. This is the why that sits behind everything we do. Without purpose, work is just a series of mechanical movements. It's slogging through a spreadsheet versus realizing that that spreadsheet is the blueprint that ensures your team has the funding they need to succeed. Purpose doesn't have to mean saving the world every Tuesday. It just means connecting the dots between your current effort and a contribution to something larger than yourself. It's the realization that what you are doing matters to someone, somewhere. When you have a why, you can endure almost any how. When you align these three pillars, autonomy, mastery, and purpose, something magical happens. You stop needing to force yourself to start. Instead, you find yourself pulled toward the work. You aren't being pushed by a reward. You are being pulled by the intrinsic value of the activity itself. This is where flow lives. It's that state where the clock disappears, the distractions fade into the background, and you are fully present in what you are doing. By focusing on these three drivers, you aren't just getting things done. You are building a version of yourself that actually enjoys the process of doing them. This is the shift from having to wanting to, and it's the only way to keep the fire burning for the long haul. Now, flipping these internal switches is a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice to make it permanent. If you're ready to move beyond theory and actually wire these habits into your daily life, I've mapped out the exact process for you. My ebook, 30 Days to a Better You, is designed to take these concepts of autonomy and mastery and turn them into a clear, day-by-day roadmap. It's the practical bridge between knowing what drives you and actually living it every single morning. We often talk about mastery like it's this grand, distant peak we have to summit, a someday version of ourselves where we finally know everything. But the brain doesn't actually care about someday. The brain is a high-speed processor that thrives on the now. When you look at a massive project and tell yourself, I need to revolutionize my workflow, or I need to become a master of this craft, your brain looks at the gap between where you are and where you want to be, and it feels a sense of vertigo. That gap is where procrastination lives. To bridge it, we have to master the power of tiny wins. Think of it as micro-progress. There is a profound psychological phenomenon known as the progress principle. It suggests that of all the things that can boost emotions, motivation, and perceptions during a workday, the single most important is making progress in meaningful work. The kicker? The progress doesn't have to be a breakthrough. It can be something as simple as clearing one difficult email out of your inbox or writing 2 clean paragraphs. The reason this works is because your brain's reward system loves a win. Every time you check off a small, concrete task, you get a hit of dopamine. That dopamine doesn't just make you feel good for a second. It actually functions as a bridge to the next task. It's a motivational loop. Small wins lead to small hits of energy, which lead to the next small win. You aren't trying to move a mountain. You're just picking up one stone. But once you pick up the first stone, the second one feels lighter. To make this practical, you have to become an expert at shrinking the change. If you're struggling to start a workout, don't focus on the 45 minutes of sweat ahead of you. Tell yourself you're just going to put on your shoes and walk out the door. That's it. Once the shoes are on, the starting friction is gone. If you have a massive report due, don't tell yourself you're going to write the whole thing. Tell yourself you're going to open the document and write the title. By lowering the bar to an almost stupidly small level, you bypass the brain's fear center, the amygdala, which usually screams, "Too much! Too hard!" when faced with a big goal. But there's a second half to this strategy. You have to actually see the progress. Our work today is often invisible. We spend all day moving bits and bytes around, and by 5 p.m., it can feel like we've done nothing, even if we were busy the whole time. This is why memorializing your progress is a game changer. Whether it's a physical checklist where you get the satisfaction of crossing something out, or a simple done list where you write down 3 things you accomplished before you close your laptop, you need a visual record. When you look back and see a streak of tiny wins, you're providing your brain with evidence. You're proving to yourself that you are the kind of person who moves forward. Mastery isn't a destination. It's the momentum of 1,000 tiny steps. By focusing on the micro progress, you stop worrying about the summit and start enjoying the rhythm of the climb. You aren't forcing the gear to turn. You're greasing the wheels so they can't help but spin. Even when we have autonomy and we're stacking up tiny wins, there comes a moment where the how just isn't enough. We've all been there, plodding through a task that feels utterly hollow. It's the data entry phase of a project, the administrative slog, or the repetitive practice that makes your eyes glaze over. This is where the internal engine starts to sputter. To fix it, we have to look past the what and connect the dots to the why. We have to find the purpose. Purpose is often misunderstood. We tend to think of it as a grand, cinematic destiny, saving the environment or curing a disease. And while those are incredible, purpose in our daily lives is much more grounded and practical. It is simply the realization that what you are doing contributes to something or someone else. It's the shift from being a bricklayer to being a cathedral builder. The work is exactly the same, but the internal experience is worlds apart. When you find yourself stuck, it's usually because your focus has become too narrow. You are staring so closely at the dull task that you've lost sight of the ecosystem it lives in. To flip the purpose switch, you need to zoom out. Ask yourself, who does this help? If you're a teacher grading papers, you're not just checking boxes. You're providing the feedback that helps a student find their voice. If you're an IT technician fixing a server, you're not just typing commands. You're restoring the digital bridge that allows a whole team to collaborate and create. There is a powerful technique to make this real, the one-sentence purpose statement. Before you dive into a difficult stretch of work, take 30 seconds to write down one sentence that explains why this specific effort matters. It's a North Star for your focus. If you're writing a difficult article, your sentence might be, "I am writing this to give someone the tools they need to change their life." When the middle of the project gets messy and you want to quit, you look at that sentence. It acts as a reminder that your struggle has a destination. It transforms slogging into contributing. Connecting to purpose also changes how we handle setbacks. When you're working purely for a reward, a setback feels like a personal failure. It's a delay in getting your carrot. But when you're working for a purpose, a setback is just a problem to be solved in service of the mission. It gives you a layer of psychological armor. Purpose fuels persistence because it makes the work bigger than your own temporary discomfort. It's why people can run marathons or stay up all night finishing a gift for a friend. The why provides an energy source that if-then rewards simply cannot touch. In the end, purpose is the ultimate fuel for the long haul. It's the difference between a job and a calling. By intentionally reframing your tasks, by looking for the contribution hidden inside the chore, you turn the light on in a dark room. You realize that you aren't just moving gears in a machine. You are creating value, solving problems, and making a mark. Once you connect those dots, the motivation doesn't just return, it becomes sustainable. You stop asking, "How do I get through this?" and start asking, "How can I make this even better for the people it serves?" We've talked about the internal engines of motivation, the autonomy, the mastery, the purpose. But let's be honest, even with all those pillars in place, we are still human. We still love a win. We still want that feeling of "I did it, and now I get something for it." The mistake we've made for decades isn't the act of rewarding ourselves, it's the timing. We've been using rewards as a bribe to start when we should be using them as a celebration of the finish. This is the shift to the now that reward, and it is the secret to keeping your brain happy without turning it into a hostage to incentives. Think back to the if-then rewards we discussed at the beginning. If you finish this, then you get a prize. That creates pressure. It makes the work feel like a barrier to the joy. But a now that reward is a surprise. It's the act of finishing a grueling afternoon of deep work and saying, now that I've nailed that presentation, I'm going to take the long way home through the park. Or now that I've finished this chapter, I'm going to make that really good coffee I've been saving. The reason this works so effectively is rooted in how our brain processes authenticity. When a reward is contingent and dangling in front of us, our brain feels manipulated. It narrows our focus to the prize and actually saps the joy out of the task itself. But when the reward comes after the effort as a non-contingent surprise, it doesn't interfere with the intrinsic flow of the work. You did the work for the sake of the work, and the reward is just the cherry on top. It feels like a genuine celebration of your own agency. This is what I call motivation without manipulation. It allows you to enjoy the perks of hard work without the hangover of losing interest once the reward is gone. If you promise yourself a treat every time you do a task, eventually you won't do the task unless the treat is there. You've accidentally trained your brain to be a mercenary. But if you occasionally surprise yourself with a reward after the fact, you reinforce the positive feelings associated with the work itself. You're telling your brain, hey, doing this hard thing felt good, and life is also pretty good. The best now that rewards are often the simplest. They don't have to be expensive or elaborate. They just have to be authentic to you. Maybe it's 5 minutes of sitting in the sun, a favorite song, or a cold drink at the end of a long day. The key is that the reward is a reflection of the accomplishment, not a condition for it. It's about memorializing the effort. When you sit down with that reward, you aren't just consuming something. You are taking a moment to acknowledge your own progress. You are witnessing your own mastery. This brings us full circle. By moving away from the carrot and stick and toward a life fueled by autonomy, mastery, and purpose, and punctuated by these authentic celebrations, you change your relationship with productivity. You stop being someone who has to be tricked into working. You become someone who is engaged, curious, and driven by an internal fire that doesn't burn out. So, the next time you find yourself stuck, don't reach for a bribe. Don't wave a stick. Instead, give yourself a choice. Find a tiny win. Remember why it matters. And when you're done, give yourself a quiet moment of celebration. That is how you force your brain into gear. Not by bullying it, but by finally giving it what it was always designed to crave. You aren't just getting things done anymore. You're finally enjoying the ride.